Welcome to She's a Full-On Monet, a digital lifestyle magazine for women. Every week, our editor-in-chief, Kelly Castillo, along with Megan Block and special guests, participate in a deep dive discussion about recent articles and topics we have covered. We invite you to become part of our community where everyone's welcome. You can totally sit with us.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to She's a Full-On Monet. I am your host, Kelly, and I have with me Megan.
Hello. I just realized we're like a little twinny today.
We are twinning. I noticed it. We are twinning today.
It's like one of those days where you're like, I don't know, just black, right? Just get to the classic look.
Today I had a morning meeting at 8:30 at the house, and the contractor showed up for it at 7:45. So I was still in like the sweats that I walked the dog in. So I decided to quickly just throw on jeans and a black t-shirt because it required no thought at all.
There it is. Bless that classic look. Oh my gosh.
When normally they're 45 minutes early. I know, right?
You anticipate that. It's like, I don't know. It's hard depending on where you're traveling from. But like, if I'm hosting a party, even like and you're early, it throws me off because like I need every millisecond I got, especially in the morning. If you're coming for a morning appointment, chaos ensues in the morning. So frustrating.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
Well, I'm kind of excited for today's topic because, to be honest, this is something that I struggle with, and I was never concerned about it. I never thought it was really an issue. I thought, okay, I don't really need that. But it's been something lately that, I've been exploring more, and I think it's a good topic. So I think I can't be the only one who feels like this is a struggle. And so, today we are talking about making friends as an adult. And that is something that, unless you like still live in your small hometown that you grew up in, is probably an issue for every adult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I know I can relate to this. I'm going to have a lot to add today.
Well, yeah. I mean, as we grow older, our friendships, I mean, even the ones that we've had since we were kids, sometimes just locationally speaking, we drift locationally apart. So you need to develop kind of a new circle to hang and bond and relate to. And so going about that as an adult can feel weird sometimes. And, it's almost like establishing any type of relationship as an adult. I mean, it's been forever and a day, but I was an adult when I met my husband, and establishing that we were like boyfriend, girlfriend felt weird. Cause I'm like, this feels like it was so easy in middle school or in high school. You know what I mean? And making friends was that was like what you did. Right. So, and once you found your group, you stop anyway. So it can be tricky. It can feel weird. It can feel awkward to me.
Yeah. I think, making friends in school, whether it's middle school, high school, elementary school, is so natural because you're grouped up, you're paired up for projects, you're seated next to each other. I mean, it's so simple. And those friendships can last throughout your entire school career. And then when you get to college, if you go to college, you're paired up with a roommate, you're in a dorm, you have classes too, where you're sitting next to people. So there's also a lot of opportunities there to make quick friendships. Plus, if you join a sorority or fraternity, you have an instant group of friends, which makes life so much easier. But as an adult, I mean, I know for myself, making friends in the workplace has been probably the easiest way. But now, it's been many years that I've been working from home. Very different, very different. And I still keep in touch with people from all those different friendship types. But it's usually through social media because we all live in different areas and we're doing different things with our lives. But if it's not a group of people that you see every day for a reason, like at school or at work or something like that, it can be really hard to not only make those friendships, but maintain them.
Mm-hmm. Maintaining is tricky because everyone's got crazy schedules. Sometimes people can be a little more persistent than others. A friendship is, you gotta like, give and get, right? And so as an adult, sometimes life gets in the way and then you're not giving as much as you should, so it's like maintaining a friendship can be equally tricky,
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about this subject in relation to myself in particular. I have never been one who feels like I need a lot of close friendships. Usually where like in my childhood and high school, I have always had a large group of like acquaintances and light friends. Like we did a whole topic about this where we called them loose tie friendships. I have a lot of loose tie friendships, but throughout my life, I've usually only had like one or two very close friends at a time. And part of that is just like the energy that's required to maintain like those deep friendships is hard for me, especially at this phase of my life with my schedule. And it was hard for me when the kids were all small. I mean, I had 4 little kids who had so many demands on my time and emotional energy that I didn't really feel like I had anything left to give at the end of the day. I just wanted silence. I didn't want to like talk it out with a girlfriend for hours. But recently I was down at our like little beach club and sitting at a table, and there was just across from me, there was a table of 4, I want to say elderly women. They were probably at least late 70s, if not mid 80s. And they were sat there the entire time. They were there when I got there. They were still there. They were playing cards and having drinks at the beach club. And they were just laughing it up and having such a lovely time. And it made me kind of ponder whether like right now I have so many demands on my time and on my energy resources. I protect them like it's, you know, I'm so fiercely protective of my emotional energy. But as I get older and the kids need me less, right? They're grown, they're out of the house. They still need me, seems like on a daily basis, but they're going to need me less. And, you know, my partner's a lot older than me, so he may need more, or he may not even be here. I don't really know, but I can imagine a time where I will kind of wish I had cultivated those types of friendships and wish that I had that like circle that I could say, hey, let's go play bridge, or let's, you know, I don't know, whatever I decide I want to do at that time of my life, it will be nice to have some companionship to do it. I do have, you know, my sister, I do have my children. They all like to spend time with me and I like to spend time with them, but it's different than having a friend group. So that's when I saw that happening at the table next to me, it really made me question, like, should I be investing more of my time and energy into building friendships? And I'm still pondering. I have not come to a conclusion on it, because I always thought, you know, I don't get lonely. I love my alone time. I fill my time up with lots of things that I enjoy doing by myself. But maybe that's because I don't have very much alone time. Maybe what I have is alone time. I won't want it like that. Like have wine night, or I don't know. So yeah, this is a topic that has been on my mind a lot lately. I've really been pondering this. So
yeah, I totally can relate to it. I mean, my friendships come from you know, elementary school age, and then when you know, my best friend moved to New York, I was in like my 20s, and another friendship I had who was also my best friend, I'm really big on like effort, you know, and I don't think that the you know, the label or whatever best friend is just like a given thing. I think it's an earned thing, and I think it's something that you showcase on a consistent basis, not just, you know. And so people that I thought were my best friends weren't really giving that type of maintaining energy. And then, you know, I randomly met one person at Disneyland who, I mean, to say she's my person is such an understatement. And that, I mean, our friendship is only 4 years old, but it might as well have been 40 years old, because she's my person, and she's just, and it's only because like there will be times, because we're both busy. We both have 2 young kids. There will be times where there will be a long time we don't see each other. I mean, COVID was one of those, but just life gets in the way. Right. But she still checks in, and she still makes an effort, you know, like just today, she just randomly texts me saying like, it's almost your birthday. Cause it is almost my birthday. And like, I didn't even think about my birthday, but she did. Like, it's just the effort, you know? And so I think when you find a person that just gets you, but also puts out the effort and, you know, doesn't put out just excuses, I think it's worth investing in. It's such a two-way street when you're older, because you know, when you're in 5th period and you see each other at recess, it's easy to hang out, right? But when you have life getting in the way, you know, and all this other stuff, it just makes it makes it that much more important, you know?
That was
And
exactly what my hesitation was when I was, in the last 27 years, was that I knew I couldn't maintain myself in a way that felt fair, because I
Mhm.
had so many demands on me at home that if my friend called and said, hey, you know what, I had a really bad day, I need you, can you come over and talk? I wouldn't have been able to, or it would have been I wouldn't have been mentally present either, because I would have been thinking that the kids were with the sister and that this and that. And I still need, I mean, 7 years is a really unreasonable thing to try to tackle as a single mom. So I knew that I couldn't, uphold my end of a friendship commitment. And for me to expect someone to be there for me and not be able to reciprocate always felt like very unfair. So I'm just now getting to the stage of my life where, not that I have any more free time, but I have maybe a little bit more mental energy so I can think about that. Because you're absolutely right. It has to
yeah.
be a two-way street.
And I also think that it makes you a better, more well, I've heard that it makes you a better, more well-rounded person when you have something that's separate from your family life, from your husband or spouse or whatever, that you have that, whether it's one person, three people, whatever, that you can disconnect from all of that and become, because there's so many pieces to us, that we're not just a mom, we're not just a wife, we're not just a husband, whatever. You need adult friends, just so that you can feel that piece of you, so that when you come back home, you're a more well-rounded person. Because I think a lot of resentment can build up when you don't have that piece of you. It's hard to make friends, especially when you're a parent, because that always will come first, and you're strained. Even when I go out, and it's so not very often, this Monday I have a plan to go out with my 3 mom friends, my best friend and my 2 other close friends, to celebrate my birthday. And like, I'm sure 10 minutes before I leave, like, I'll be stricken with mom guilt. I think that is a big aspect of it too, is that we want that as adults, but we just let all of this stuff get in the way. And it's just easier to wait until it's like you said, like a better moment in time, or just it's easier not to, I was my
Yeah.
mom's best friend. Okay. And it's like, I just think that it's just, I think it just makes you a better person, and you show up on all the other areas in your life better when you have, somebody that's not in your family to connect with. It is a lot, and I don't have a lot of time. So like, one person gets most of my energy, and then the other people get as much as I have left over, but like, it's a lot to ask when, when I see these groups of like 4 really close women. I'm like, man, if they all had a crisis at the same time, like, I wouldn't know how to handle,
Exactly. Or
yeah.
like, I see these, and I'm not judging here at all. I hope it doesn't come across that way, but I have mom friends who go on like girls trips, and they'll be gone a week or 10 days with their girlfriends, and they look like, I mean, I can see the pictures, they're having a ton of fun. And I envy that, because I've never been able to step away from my life in that way and feel comfortable. I mean,
Mhm.
I can go away now. I can go away for a week or 10 days with my partner, but I'm not comfortable leaving him for a week or 10 days to fend for himself, because, he needs me now more than ever in different ways. And when the kids were small, I would never be away from them for more than like 5 or 6 days. And there was an incredible amount of guilt, even 5 or 6 days, because I would call home and Gabby would cry and, when are you coming home? Just make me feel terrible, and I couldn't
Yeah, they're
enjoy
never
myself.
like, hey, extend it, we're having a blast. It's
We're
always
having
like
so much fun.
they know what to say, and they're not trying to hurt you. It's just like, well, dang, like, they have no idea we're already feeling bad, and they just need to poke it.
Yeah. And my sitter or nanny or whatever would tell me, the minute you get off the phone, she's
Of course,
fine.
they always do. They always do. Grandparents, your spouse, they're like, oh, it's fine. They were fine. They didn't even ask for you. And that there's no way to win, because I've also come home
No.
and like, I'll be like, how'd it go? And they'll be, they didn't even ask. And I'll be like, wait, they didn't even mention it. I was thinking about them the whole time. What do you mean? Like, and I missed out on just disconnecting. And that's what I'm also really bad at, being present in the moment and enjoying the moment. I'm always thinking about what I need to do next or what's going on at home. So like even when I'm out, sometimes I'm not even like really present, or
Yeah.
all we're doing is talking about the kids, and it's like, nah, this feels weird, so it is a weird thing. If you don't have kids, it can also be weird. You can be really busy with your job and just not have enough time to connect with people. Sometimes the people you work with aren't so great, and there's not really an opportunity to flourish like any sort of friendship there. So, a lot of people don't have time to go out at night, or like, I don't know, there's not like an app for friends where you can swipe or learn. Maybe there is.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Book clubs, there's meetups, there's this and that, like there's certainly ways. We'll go through them, tips and tricks, but like it is it's such a weird thing to navigate through.
It is. And I mean, I know I have issues with this that come from like my childhood, because for one, I felt distinctly, whether that was right or wrong, it was my impression. I felt very distinctly as a child that I was not my parents' priority. And that was normal, I think, more in the 70s than it is now, for sure. Children were like kind of an afterthought. I mean, it got better from like the 40s, 50s, 60s, but I was born in the 70s, and I still didn't feel like I was number one priority for my parents. And so I really feel the need to make sure my kids know that I'm a priority. I will drop everything if they need me. And maybe I've taken it too far, where now it's like they're adults and they still like really rely on me on a daily basis. And I probably could have fostered a little bit more independence in them. But, growing up like that, where, I mean, my dad loves me, cared about me, single dad, did a great job, but he also had to manage running a business, his career, right? And relationships and time with his friends and household chores. And there was a lot of responsibility on him. I was alone a lot as a kid. And so that fostered like a hyper independence. I'm a very independent person. I don't like other people very much. Other people like my emotional needs sometimes. I like to just, handle everything myself. So some part of friendship me to talk, or that, you need some emotional comfort from a bad day.
See, that's the thing. You just got to find a person that, like, my best friend hates that kind of stuff. Like, like, even if, like, here's the thing, I know she's there, and if I started talking about it, she'd totally listen, maybe even give me some advice, but she's never going to be the one just to like be like, I just don't know. Like, if she's going through a crisis, I won't hear from her for a while. She won't call me and dump it all on me. I don't know why. That's just who she is. But I can tell something's up when I don't hear from her for a while, and I'll find out that like, oh, both her kids were sick at the same time, and like so-and-so got laid off, or it's like, but like, I can see how that would be hard or uncomfortable for people, because like we're so used to as kids just like I remember telling my sixth grade best friends like everything, and I don't know how they handled it. Maybe because that's the only, like, we don't have to handle life's burdens at sixth grade.
No, we're talking about a boy we like, or
a boy, and that my friend's boy that messed up, right?
Yeah,
like, that's it. What are we having for dinner? The test next Friday. These are the max and that's problems.
This is the part that's hard for me, because when I have had friends who I'm thinking maybe this is a person I can build this type of friendship with, and then we get together or something and they kind of trauma dump on me, and maybe it's not maybe it's just normal sharing, but to me it feels like a trauma dump, and they tell me all this struggle that they're going through, something really personal, and they share it with me, and then they're looking at me in expectation, waiting for me to share my stuff.
Oh,
and
gosh.
I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking about getting this. And so then I feel like, am I emotionally stunted? Like, close with people in that way? I don't know. I got to work some of this out in therapy, I think.
They go too hard, too fast, and it just like throws you off guard. You're like, no, not me. You know what? And that's why you keep doing that until you find that perfect match of like, when... First of all, that's ridiculous. Secondly, if they do that to you and you look at them, like my friend does that. If I were to trauma dump on her, she would just be like, these chips are good. Like, I don't know what to say, and she gets so uncomfortable. And like, I almost think that's super funny because I'm like, okay, you're just not that type of person. We like to watch a lot of New Girl. You've seen New Girl,
Yeah.
right? And like we like, I'm very much like Schmidt and she's very much like Nick Miller. And so like she just doesn't feel the feels and I don't expect her to. And I feel all the feels, you know, we know who we are and we like who we are for who we are. We don't try and push someone to be somebody we're not, you know, like I know you well.
That's my
problem. Dump
problem.
on you.
That's my problem.
And be like, what do I do right now?
Because I have a tendency, like in the other person, and that's not great because if they're a really emotional person or an oversharer or they want to get deep or whatever, I have trouble mirroring that. So I'm all about like, just let's hang out and eat chips and guac and have margaritas and not talk about our feelings.
Talk
let's
about
do it all
euphoria. There's so much we can talk about. We don't have to like, honestly though, like if you and I are so close, like you're my best friend and you're going through something really hard in life, of course I'm there for you. I'm not like, oh, don't give me uncomfortable feels, but it's like the person you met not that long ago and like you're not you know too soon, too much too soon, and you're just like, I'm not there. But yeah, let's talk about what are some ways we can make a friend as an adult, because we've established how icky it is.
Yeah, so let's talk about friendship in general. There are a lot of situations that we mentioned, retirement homes. That's where you're in a shared living space, and friendships bonds form naturally. The in-between is the problem, right? From the time you graduate college, if you attend college or graduate high school, to the retirement home age. There's a big gap there where it's much more challenging to build and maintain friendships. And, you know, a friendship obviously is something that is so personal. And you're right, you do have to find the connection with, it's no different really than like dating and finding your romantic match. You have to find your platonic match as a friend. You have to be equally invested, equally dedicated to growing this friendship, right? And you're also making a commitment to that person's like well-being, and it's a different form. It reminds me of dating, and it just, for me to like date to find friends seems like, I know they have like the Bumble BFF app.
Just like dating though, when you know, like it's typically you meet someone and you guys are laughing about the same stupid stuff and you realize like it's kind of like that movie Step Brothers, right? With Will Ferrell. Like, did we just become best friends? Like, it's not something you can force. You can't like meet someone and ask them 20,000 questions. Like, just because you and I both like The Office doesn't mean that we're gonna be able to talk about something else 20 minutes from now. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where you just after being around someone's energy and talking to them, you just kind of know, and then it grows from there. Or sometimes it doesn't, like, you know, it's, yeah.
Well, one tip that I've heard over and over again, whether it's from people that I know, like, because like I said, this has been on my mind now for a while, is that the best way as an adult to form friendships is to find something that you're interested in. It could be anything that's your choice. It could be hiking. It could be a book group. It could be doing community theater. It could be Disneyland. It could be, you know, whatever it is, a cooking class, whatever, something that you're already interested in, which gives you, it kind of preempts some of awkward, because you assume if someone else is there, they'll probably have at least one shared interest with you. And then, you know, if it's a group that you can join that is creating something, there's something about the act of making something as a group kind of facilitates friendship, which is wonderful. So things like a cooking class or a community theater, something, it doesn't have to be the arts, but where even a community garden could be a great place to meet, you know, people with shared interests. This is something that, women used to make these kinds of friendships in like church groups, church socials, right? Now, a lot of us are no longer religious, and that kind of community isn't what it was. This used to be the social community. So if you can do something where you're joining an existing group, or you're looking online for new groups that are forming. I know there's a website for older women that is, and it's a community website, and they do in-person events, whether it's hiking, nature walks, book clubs, and you can share your geographical area, and they have in-person meetups. They also do a lot of like virtual events, which is cool. But even like your local like Craigslist or something, those on Craigslist. But there are like community volunteer sections on you can find. Volunteering is another really great group activity that you can do, that you can meet people, whether you want to volunteer at like a soup kitchen or a farmer's market, co-op thing, or whatever is interesting to you that you can feel like might put you in the same location. Like it kind of starts the friendship, whirlpool, where you can like hopefully bump up against people who have similar.
Yeah. Because I mean, you're not going to just like walk up and down the aisles at a grocery store and just start randomly talking. You just won't. I mean, it's just not your personality. That's why we're talking about this in the first place. Right. So, sometimes just like forcing yourself into a community of people with similar interests or, thoughts can really help branch out into like the second and third conversation,
Yeah. And I mean, there are literally groups out there for almost every interest. If you love, model trains, if you love crocheting, if you love yoga, if your dog is like your whole world, there are dog park get-togethers. Like my youngest daughter, Gabby, just moved to New York a few months ago, and she's had some friends there, and she's met some friends while she's been there, but she's been looking specifically to form friendships in the city. So she has her little service dog, who is a dachshund, little wiener dog. So she joined a wiener dog meetup group that meets at the park. And she was a little nervous going into it. Like, is there going to be anyone there my age? Right. She's only 20. She met some great friends, and she found someone who was willing to dog sit when she can't have the dog with her for some reason. And she's gotten together with those friends now multiple times. So
that's amazing.
That worked for her. Yeah. And
that's really cool.
I gave advice to my older daughter about making friendships when she started college.
Because I remember this conversation because it was tough
because
for her
she's also very introverted like I am.
Yeah.
And most of her friends are either the girlfriends or wives of her fiance's friends, or the other firemen in his station, or they are people that she met at work or at school. So, I mean,
also we tend to still act like children when we look at people, and we tend to judge harshly. And so, she's very, very beautiful. And so some girls are haters, right? And so sometimes even when you're an adult and you're trying to make an adult friendship, sometimes that girl energy, if they're not confident with themselves, they have something going on, can be really hard for some people.
Well, and
right?
for her, the attractive and also very shy makes being on airs. She's, she thinks that she's whatever. She's just really painfully shy.
Yeah. So it's really hard too, because like you're instantly judged as like the worst possible thing. And it's like, couldn't be further from the truth. It's just actually, believe it or not, it's like, I'm really shy. Once you understand that and see that, it's like, oh, that's totally different. So yeah.
So when she started college, she went to college for a while, and she wasn't living on campus, and she was living alone. And she was saying, I've had a really hard time meeting anybody. Nobody is approaching me, and I don't know how to do this. And I told her, compliment someone on something. You don't even have to mean it. You just find something and compliment them to start the conversation, and then ask, where did you get it? And try to ask leading questions. And so she called me later that day, and she was like, I did exactly what you said. I complimented someone on their shoes. We started a conversation about our favorite shoe brands, and now we're having coffee. And I was like, that's so great. And it's just, if no one's ever told you what to do and you just wait for people to approach
I'm
you.
telling you, when you make an adult friend, it's like a little flex. You're just like, I did it. Like you could be, I mean, I know a lot of really like non-introverted people that have no problem carrying conversation with strangers. My husband's one of them. I'm not like that. I made an adult friend that was new within the last like 2-3 years. And like, it was such a flex. I was like, yes, I did it. I had conversation. I asked follow-up questions. We are hanging out. Like, it just, I don't know. It's not as easy.
Because it is such an awkward thing. When you successfully do it, it feels so great.
It does. And I remember her feeling wonderful when that happened, that it worked, you know? So,
yeah.
Cool.
So, I mean, I want to stress that I think the advice we gave is really good about joining a community, joining some kind of class, or, I mean, even if the gym is your thing, you know, try to do like some group classes where you are kind of around other people. But understand also that it's not a one-time thing. You're not going to go once and make 5 great new friends. That's not how it works. People tend to get more comfortable with, you know, familiar faces that they've seen more than once. So it may take some time and some repeated, you know, joining of the activity until you're familiar a little bit with people and where you feel more comfortable approaching them, or they feel more comfortable approaching you. But don't, you know, if the first person you approach kind of brushes you off or doesn't seem that receptive, don't be like, I suck at this, I'm a failure. Like, I'm meant to be alone forever. It might just not have been the best fit, or maybe they weren't having a great day, or, I mean, there could be any number of things. So you can't get, you know, dispirited about it.
Yeah. And you got to put yourself out there. I mean, I met my friend at Disneyland. I reached out to her on social media. She offered to teach me how to sew because she made her daughter's like outfits. And I always wanted to learn. And if I hadn't taken her up on her offer to teach me and gone over there, I would have never had the friendship I have today. So actually, if I had never turned around and introduced myself, because I actually followed her on Instagram, like my daughter did before I actually met her, and I recognized her. And if I didn't get out of my comfort zone and talk to a stranger, an adult, which for me is really hard to do, and like, you know, start a conversation, not even with really any intention of like, let's be best friends, just like, hey, I know this person. I know this is a hard thing for me. I'm going to practice it so it's not as a hard thing for me. Like, now I have this beautiful, amazing friendship. And I always think about that, you know? So it's like, put yourself out there, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
and also there may be people that you are interacting with on a regular basis that you haven't even considered that might be good candidates to be friends with. And you're so used to seeing them in whatever context you see them that you haven't even thought about that. I know I walk my dogs about the same time every morning, and for months I would pass this woman and we were walking at the same time. And then it was such a slow progression. We passed each other and smiled. Then we said hello. Then we said good morning and talked about the weather. And every so often it would get like one step closer to being friends. And then we started talking about our kids and grandkids and our gardens. And it blossomed into what is now like a very nice little friendship. But it wouldn't, if you know, it wasn't an instant thing. It wasn't like, I didn't walk up to her and say, hey, want to be friends? And she said, yeah, let's go. And we've just,
and it took you saying something to her and like, you know, feeling the waters, you know, like you got to understand that it's not going to be like a instant thing. You know, you got to plant the seed.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So if you do join, that's another reason why it's so important to join a class or organization that you are genuinely interested in, because if you are just going there to make friends and it doesn't happen right away, you're going to get bored or discouraged and you're going to quit. So it has to be something you already wanted to learn how to. It could be a language class. You want to learn to speak Italian. It could be, you know, a group that's planning a trip, like a travel group. There are those like single women travel groups. It could be literally anything. Like this is why groups that like meet repetitively, and especially if it's a type of group where conversation is really kind of, you know, something that's supposed to happen. Because you could do a cooking class alongside other people and everyone's listening to the instructor and there is no conversation. So Yeah, if it's a group where conversation is kind of expected, like a book club where you discuss the book that you've read and give your opinions and share, that's a little bit deeper opportunity to get to know people. I mean, there are reasons why people who attend meetings like I'm going to use AA meetings for an example, because they do share such deeply personal stories. There is a connection there that forms much faster and deeper. And I'm definitely not saying like go to AA meetings.
No, but like volunteering, you get a job, you're
Yeah.
performing a task. Sometimes you're given a team task to like do. So small talk happens in that while you're solving a universal problem together. So
yeah,
volunteering's great.
I've volunteered for some things that kind of fostered that kind of connection because we were fundraising together where we needed to go around to local businesses and ask for donations, or we were working at a check-in table together. So in between people checking in, we had time to chat and talk and like, oh, how did you get involved? Well, I did this, and how about you? And like there are groups and organizations where it is a little bit more conducive to friendship building.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going out to play a sport or something, that's great. And that might be something you really love, but you might not have as much opportunity for conversation. If it's something like a hiking group where you're walking side by side with someone, that kind of lends itself a little bit more to chatting. So keep that in mind when you're trying to do an activity. But especially if you're someone like me where, small talk conversation doesn't come as easily. Like if I was in a cooking class where the instructor was talking the whole time, I would probably not say a word.
Oh yeah. Unless you had to like team up, right? And you had to create something together with your partner that you were assigned, like it's chemistry class again.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the only reason that you would need to, or else I would almost feel like it'd be rude, because the instructor's teaching and I shouldn't be trying to make small talk when you're trying to hear what the instructor's saying. So those aren't the right environments for cultivating friendships.
If this is something that feels like it's going to be a struggle for you or a little bit uncomfortable, because this is also something that with practice becomes easier.
Yes.
Small talk and chatting with practice does become easier, especially if you have we've all been a little isolated with COVID and maybe not having as many day-to-day conversations as normal. And if you live alone and just don't have an opportunity to just chit chat with people as often as you would like, I would really highly suggest joining one of these groups. I know that like Revel is one that I mentioned that tends to be for like midlife and beyond. There have got to be a lot of groups like that are for every different type of person. But they do have these virtual events where it's like on a Zoom and you're discussing a particular topic. And they break out into like breakout groups where you discuss. So that is a very low pressure environment to learn how to have that small talk conversation, because I mean, these are people probably from around the country, right? They're not living in your neighborhood. So if you totally embarrass yourself, you're not going to run into them in the grocery store 2 days from now.
Right.
Or, if you're like, oh my gosh, this was not for me, there isn't any awkwardness of you not showing up for a continued commitment.
Yes. Like if you were a part of like a book club or something like that.
Right. And it's harder to drop out of something like that. And you may go once and immediately know it's not for you. And it's okay to make a course correction. But if it's something like you've made a commitment to a charitable organization to do something, and then you go and you're like, this is not for me, that's harder to get out of. So maybe start small, start with some of those virtual groups and feel it out a little bit until you get more comfortable. And then you can try. That's what I would do, at least, because I am also super awkward with people I don't know. So that helps. Or if you do know people who are in, it could be a pickleball group. It could be something like fun like that you've always wanted to try, and someone, maybe they're not even a close friend, but someone who's involved. You can ask them, hey, is your group accepting new members? And going along with someone that even a little bit really breaks the ice.
Absolutely.
And makes that transition so much. I know when I'm walking into a party with my partner, I'm like, don't you dare leave me.
Right.
So I am not a mingler.
No, I am not either.
No.
And when you're not and your partner is, it can be, but I'm trying to be less like that, because it's like not as bad as it feels that it is. And I see it's so effortlessly done by other people. And I so want to be that type where I'm not like immediately know when I get put into a situation where I know no people. Like it's worse than death. Honestly, I don't. And I still feel that way. Like I just one person feels a little better. So yeah, that's a really good way. If you're wanting to try something new, then ask to be brought with you next time, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, and maybe you have like a goal that you can kind of combine with this. Like we talked about habit stacking or goal stacking. So maybe you've been wanting to learn a language and you downloaded some app to learn it, and then you just kind of, it pittered out, you know, or you want to get more active and you want to do something more physical. We talked about having accountability buddies for that.
Yes.
So getting into a group that's trying to all do this together is a wonderful way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Or if there's something that in particular that you're struggling with in your life, there are support groups for literally everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I know when I was a caregiver for my grandmother, there were a lot of caregiver support groups that were a great place for people to come and kind of like vent out everything that is going on, and a safe space to talk about some things that are hard in that aspect. I found a lot of those groups also, like when my son was in active addiction, there was a lot of like parents of addicted children and the support groups for that. So if there's something particular in your life that you're struggling with, and it's hard to find people who relate to that. I mean, those are very niche circumstances, right?
Yeah, they're very personal. Not everyone. Yeah.
I mean, I would talk to my mom friends about my son's situation, and they would nod and be very sympathetic, but then kind of back away slowly.
Yeah.
in case it's contagious. But I mean, I understand that like, that's something that's really hard for anyone who hasn't been through that, is really hard for them to relate to,
you know?
Yeah.
Like,
and
it's needs someone who really gets it. You know?
And it's hard to take advice from someone who hasn't been through it.
Mm-hmm.
People always imagine what they would do in that circumstance, but unless you've been in it, it's impossible to guess. And just a safe space to talk about some of the things that you're even kind of scared to say out loud, or you once you say them out loud and everybody goes, yes, exactly, then you feel a little bit validated. Yeah. Those are wonderful. If you have a particular circumstance like that, there are lots of support groups for specific medical diagnosis or things like that, and they're usually free. I know I've searched online for things like that, and there's been a lot of resources, and they tell you in your local area when they meet and where they meet. So that's another great way to find people who are maybe at the same life circumstance that you're in at the moment, the same kind of port in the harbor.
Yeah, there could be something that is going on in your life that's holding you back from forming, you know, real healthy adult friendships. And, you know, sometimes just being in the thick of it, you know, like with somebody else is the way to go, you know. And then you get out of the thick of it together, and you can still have a beautiful friendship that isn't solely revolving around that one subject, you know.
Yeah, when my kids were all little and I was in the thick of 4 toddlers, and I mean, I literally felt like I was going to fall apart every day.
Yeah, as you should.
I was part of a Mothers of Preschoolers group. And that was a really important source of support for me at the time, because not only did every week we met to talk about some subject that was, you know, of relevance to preschoolers and that developmental age, but someone would take our kids into the next room and they would all do art projects and play and stuff together. So I didn't have to worry about finding a sitter to meet up with my friends. It was all cohesive. It really worked for me at the time. That particular group, Mothers of Preschoolers, has a little bit like of a religious bent to it, but I didn't feel that it wasn't for me.
Figured it out, but you felt good there.
Yeah, I'm not religious, but I still felt very welcomed and accepted in that group. So that's another, I mean, just, you have to find your tribe, right? And the only way to do that is to kind of narrow down, like, what are the issues that I either want to talk about or be around people with, or what are the things that interest me and that I want to try.
And man, adult friendships are the same as kid friendships. I've had adult friendships that were really strong and solid that I no longer talk to anymore, or we just realized that like, there are other friendships where we just like, they fizzed out for whatever reason, you know. It's like, well, it's fine. Okay for them to not always just be solid from now until Golden Girls years, you know, like, it's fine, you know. Eventually you will find, and you don't need a lot, like those quality 1 to 3 people that will be with you through the seasons of your life, you know, but you got to put in the work to find those people.
Yeah, I've had some really great supportive friendships at different periods of my life that fit my circumstances at that time. And then my circumstances changed or theirs changed, and it just no longer really vibed. And that's okay. We have no hard feelings, we just let it go.
A season, right?
I had the same little group. We called ourselves the Village of mom friends all the way through my kids' school until they graduated. And now that our kids are scattered across the country, we just have less in common. We still catch up with each other every now and then, but we used to have like every other week on the mom nights and we don't necessarily do that anymore, but they're still wonderful women. And I still think of them as friends. Just like I had certain friends before I had kids, right? That were like my young single girlfriends. And I had kids early, way before they did. And so we didn't have anything in common anymore. And now some of them, now that they're moms, have reconnected with me and they're still great friends. It's just different.
Yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah. You just got to kind of like, just feel it out, but you can't sit around and wait for this friend to like slide into your DM or knock on your door, or, you got to join a group. Like we talked about, you got to put yourself out there a little bit and then just be open to pleasant conversation and seeing where it goes. It's going to feel awkward a little bit, but people like to talk about themselves. So if you just ask open-ended questions about the person you're talking to, or compliment what they're wearing, like it's great, because really all you got to do is just focus on the person and let them talk about themselves and they'll feel great, and then they'll be like, let's hang out. That's all it is. I mean, that's just how we're driven. We want to talk about lighthearted things, or heavier things, or everything in between, but it really mostly and then they'll reciprocate, and then you'll find a commonality in those conversations to go with from there. Open-ended questions, I'm sure there's things online you can look at to like help coach with that, or like what are some great open-ended questions to start conversation with, because it's like you have your first two questions you always ask, or like your comfort level conversation, and then once that's gone and you're still standing next to each other, you're like, what do I do next? Like sometimes it can just be that little thing that holds you from getting to the next step, and open-ended questions are great. And there's resources out there that you can look at to how to have an adult conversation, because it is weird. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is weird. That's another reason why I think those virtual meetups are a great way to start, because even if you're not super participating, just observing the patterns of conversation that people are having in these like little breakout groups, and the questions that they're asking of each other can kind of give you a little bit of an outline of how to approach it in your own like real life circumstance.
Absolutely.
And there's again, like such low pressure and low expectations with something like that you don't have to worry about anything being awkward. I mean, even if it got super awkward, you could literally hit leave Zoom and you're out of there.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. Yeah, because you can't do that. I had that conversation yesterday somewhere where somebody mistaken me for someone else. And I left the conversation with what I said at the end of it was like, that was weird. And then I was like, but I couldn't like get out of it. I was like, I just had to leave it because I feel like saying stuff would make it worse.
A couple of weeks ago, my husband and I drove quite a distance from our house to go to someone's birthday party. And we assumed that we were going to know like probably a lot of people there, because it's not a close friend. It's not even really a friend. It's someone in the same industry as my husband. So he thought, oh, I'll probably know so many people. Mm-hmm. So we walked in and we realized within like 5 minutes that we didn't know a single person at this party.
Oh gosh.
And we looked at each other and we're like, okay, we're only going to stay for 10. We'll have a drink and we're going to out of here. And then we walked out to their deck because it was at their home. We walked out to their deck and we saw that it was like a sit down dinner. And we're like, oh, we can't leave. We can't just back out. Like, this is bad. Yeah. But yeah, it was a little strange, but we did, get to talking with another couple. We made, at least
you made it through.
We made those, like, sometimes in those situations, you make a friend for the evening. We made a for the evening.
Typically
friend.
Who's sitting to your left, because that's just what's up. Yeah, no, it's, you make that one person that's like, man, you're in this, we're both in this situation together in an evening dress. Got to get through it somehow. That's yeah. Then it's just like, then it becomes, that's your test. Those are your moments where you practice those things. Those are the moments where you have to, okay, How can I make this something to take away from it? That's when you get out of your comfort zone. You're in a room full of strangers. There's nobody holding your hand. That's when you can practice those moments.
Exactly.
You know? That's when I've gone to any work dinner with my husband and I'm stuck with all like the wives because he's having to go, you know, and he checks in on me, but like I still have to I can't just sit there and stare at a wall. So like,
yeah,
I know that is my moment to try, right?
I have been known to hide in the corner eating appetizers.
I eat all the foods. Yeah. But like eventually, like, or man, like you're like, this is who I am. I'm gonna eat all the foods. Somebody will come up to you and start like having a conversation, but they're equally as good at it as you are. They're like, yeah, it's good hummus, right? You're like, cool. Like, where do we go from here? Like, if you're gonna come at me, break me out of my shell. You need to be better at it than I am, because like it's painful for me if I'm the better one of the two, you know, like it's just going to be rocky from start to finish because I got nothing, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to practice open-ended conversations, having adult conversation, trying to practice those good social skills, because those are just good to have in a professional setting. Like very successful people are very good with their communication skills with anyone. They can be placed in front of thousands of people or one stranger. They'll know your name. They'll say, because they say it 6 times because they know that's the way to, you know,
remember it. Yeah.
Right. Like there's speakers out there that you can watch and learn from if communication is holding you back from making friendships, because sometimes it's just, man, being awkward sucks, you know, because once you get past my awkwardness, I'm so cool, you know. But for a minute there, if you just go by our first conversation, it's not great all the time, you know.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I think about all the time, because like my daughters are my best friends and I talk to them we talk every day, all day. Like we have running conversations, and we'll have a conversation going by text message, a totally different conversation going by Snapchat. I mean, but you know, the truth of the matter is, like, my older daughter's getting ready to get married. They're both going to end up being married and with kids and have other commitments. And I can't rely on them to meet all my emotional needs. I mean, hopefully I'll be involved and be the everyday grandma lady, but I don't want to like expect that.
It's a lot of eggs in one basket for somebody.
They're going to have a busy life just as I had when I had young kids. And I'm going to want, you know, someone to go to the movies with.
And they'll feel that burden. Honestly, they will. My dad lives alone and I've been pushing adult friendships on him for a very long time. And it's always the same people that he's already known that are also in that same situation where they're retired and doing nothing. And I'm like, dude, Facebook this guy. Like, you guys were fine 20 years ago. You already have stuff in common. It's just really hard because it's like, if we don't have something going on with him, he has no plans. And it's a burden on the child if their parents don't have a life outside of them. So it's good for you. It's good for your kids that will, like you pointed out, become very busy as they get older and their lives become more complicated and more complex, and they become just taken. And
it's just away. It's healthy to have a full and rich life that isn't completely dependent on your children or your partner. I mean, I can't expect my partner to be my only friend because he's a lot older than me and he has different interests than I do.
Had to. If I shoved all the Bridgerton and Disney onto Dan, like he would die. Like, he needs me to have someone who understands that part of me, and it can like just he doesn't have to deal with that.
I need to find my adult friend. That sounds wrong. My grown-up woman friend who will come over and just like, we can read books on sofas across from each other, and every so often like read each other a really good part or something, and like have, you know, tea and cookies and be fine not talking for 2 hours.
That's you. That's
very much me.
Who is equally excited to wear a Harry Potter cape to Universal Studios and drink actual beer and wear a cape with me. Like, you got to find your weird person, you know, whatever that is. They don't have to like the same things as you, but they got to accept you for you. And you guys have to have some commonalities. You know, I know a lot of people that are polar opposites of each other, but yet their friendship just really works. You know?
So that's another thing too.
Find the souls that match,
who can balance me would be great. And hopefully, you know, cultivate some friendships that can last until my older years, because I am going to be by myself. It's just something that I've already kind of made peace with, because, you know, my partner is 20 plus years older than me. And it's just common sense that I'll be alone at some point. And,
we all like our alone time, some more than others,
but I don't know if I want
all alone
years
time.
of alone time stretching out forever. My sister, her husband is also older than her. We joke that we're going to be like old cat ladies together. Maybe that's how this ends up, but it would be nice to have some of my own friendships for sure.
Yeah.
That is, I've already put it like on my vision board or whatever of what I'm working on for myself.
Do you have like a picture of like I don't know.
I wish I had snapped a picture of these old ladies, like without them knowing and thinking I'm creeper.
Whenever I'm at Disney with my friends and it's just us drinking, like, and I see older women just like us at Disney drinking, just no kids, just doing the thing. And I'm just like, I look at Jen and I'm like, please let that be us. Like, that's goals to me. When you're like in your 80s, like, it's cute to see a couple, but when you see 2 or 3 or 4 like spicy women getting together, playing cards or shuffleboard and like nonstop laughing, like that's what keeps your soul young, you know, and that's what we all know, you know.
I mean, we are human beings, are pack animals, right? We do need community. We've had clans and tribes and communities as long as humans have existed. So we're not like lone animals. We need people. So
we're meant to bond with others and not just a spouse, you know, because they can't be all of that. It's so much for one person to hold, to be, you know. And it's never good. Your spouse also needs to have friendships outside of you as well. You know, it's fine to be each other's like favorite people or best friend, but it's you're so much better to that other person and to everyone else in your life when you have friendships outside of your kid,
I believe
spouse,
that.
You know, like your dad. Like I hear people saying like, my mom is my best friend. That's great. Also get another one, you know, because it's like, that's a lot. Like that's a lot of hats to wear, you know?
Right. And even though, like I said, my daughters are my best friends, but there are things that I can't really share that much with them. If I'm having an issue with my partner, that's not something I would share with my children, because
you don't want to genuinely scare them or worry.
Well, it would change their relationship with him. And or if I want to talk about some kind of financial concern, that's not something I would put on my children. It's a dynamic that is different than a friend to friend dynamic. We're not peers, even though, you know, they're adults now. So I really love this topic, and I would love to hear stories from you guys about your best friends and how you met them and how you've made friendships as an adult, because I definitely need those tips. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. So if you have found something that worked for you, or you met your best friend like Megan did in a shared interest kind of way, I would love to hear about that. And you can tell us all about it by going to Facebook and searching She's a Full-On Monet. You'll find our page, and it has an attached discussion group. So I really encourage you guys to hop on there and share your best friend stories, your meet cute with your best friend.
I just love those. I think those are just the best, because it's just like we've talked about over and over. It's just really hard to just put yourself out there. Sometimes, you know, you put more effort into it than the other person gives out, and it's not a great first, like, you know, sometimes the first round at putting yourself out there isn't always like that perfect match, right? So it's just it's hard to do in itself, and just don't stop, because once you find that person, I kid you not, like I never had really close friendships as a kid. I had friends, I had what I thought were best friends, but when I really understood what it meant to be a best friend, and then meeting a person who fit that mold, like it's an irreplaceable person in my life that I hold, that I make, like I have no time, and I make it such a priority to make some time for, because it's that important to me, you know? So
that's what I want. So hopefully I get there. I'd love to hear you guys tell us your stories, and maybe I'll find some inspiration there to find my person.
Right.
So thank you guys all for joining us again. I know I say this a lot, but we really appreciate all of you who come back week to week and share this time with us and keep us from just screaming into the void. So it is appreciated.
Of course.
If you are enjoying this podcast, please share it with a friend, send it to someone you think would benefit from it, because we love when you guys give us as recommendations to the people in your life. That's how we grow.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys again, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Don't forget to bookmark our site, she'safullonmonet.com, and subscribe to our newsletter. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you're enjoying this podcast, It helps us a lot if you can follow, rate, and review. See y'all next week.